manage to control the Zelnaga Tower and this area here. But oftentimes, if you do go through this back area here, whatever units you send back there, you're going to lose. So that's what also makes Mutalist not all that great, because there isn't a whole lot of dead space along the side here. Once you do get into the enemy side of the map, you're oftentimes stuck there until you can find a way to free yourself out, but that usually means you're going to lose at least a few mutas. So for Zergs, try and keep the game short on this map, and basically, Baneling bus, early pools with Lings, going to be really strong on this map. As far as Terran goes, Hellions are by far your best choice early in the game on this map, because you're not really going to have any other way to defend yourself, or even your allies, if you go any other kind of build. I'd say, because even Bio isn't quite mobile enough to get from this bottom side of the map here and trek all the way up here and defend their allies in time. So you're essentially going to get stuck in a situation where you're going to be forced to counterattack, and if you only have Hellions, well, you can't really kill buildings. So Hellions are very strong on this map, and it really does favor teams that have both Lings and Hellions early in the game. You can also go Bio on this map. I'd say that's probably the second best choice, because especially as you get later in the game and you start adding medevacs into your army, this area along the edge here, until these destructible rocks are taken out, there's no way to chase medevacs down if they drop into your base and somehow slip away and get back here. So medevacs, pretty good choice. And once you kind of get into the late game, that's when tanks will really become an asset to your team, because defending these chokes here, or even just camping out in this area here, can really split the map in two, and also makes it very easy to defend these expansions in the middle or harass them with siege tanks, and it also makes the front here also pretty easy to harass with siege tanks. Protoss players, the most common strategies I see from Protoss on this map are cannon rushes along the backside here, or else maybe they'll send a probe immediately, try and hide it along this edge here, and slowly sneak cannons up towards your main base. So that's another strategy that's pretty common for Protoss on this map. DTs are also pretty good, similar to maps like Fossil Core. Basically any wide open map is pretty good for DTs, because there's a lot of places you can hide them, there's a lot of places for pylons to go up, and also once you do get into the enemy's base, usually there's an opening that you can escape from. But if you decide that you don't want to be cheesy and you don't want a cannon or to go DTs on this map, Colossus are also a very strong choice, pretty much for the same reason that siege tanks are a good choice on this map. The ramps right here often have production buildings right here, which means you can basically not only cut off reinforcements, but you can also take out production buildings of your enemy with Colossus. And also, Colossus can harass and defend this expansion pretty easily because of this ledge right here. As you get later into the game, you're going to find yourself basically fighting over this middle ground to try and control these middle expansions here. The goals oftentimes do get taken if the game goes on long enough, but usually not much mining gets done there, because half the time you end up losing all the workers that you're mining with anyways, because it's so far off to the side. So most games are going to be pretty quick on this map, and they're going to favor teams with a lot of Zergs. Alright, so thanks for sticking with me so far, guys. We're on to the last map here. This is Toxic Slums. This map has separated bases, and it does favor Zerg a little bit, but it's not unfeasible for a team without any Zergs, or even having less Zergs, to be able to win on this map. Because the ramps are very narrow, which means you don't have to get a delayed gas when you're blocking this off, which makes it very easy to defend. And oftentimes I've seen teams with 3 players end up beating a team of 4 players, just because if you do go an early pool in this map, oftentimes you're only going to be able to take out one other player on the other team. But if there are other Zergs on the other team, for instance this case, this other team only has 1 Zerg, so this guy is going to have a real problem defending. So this map can be a mixed blessing for Zerg. It can be either really great if your team has more Zergs, or it can be really awful because of the separated bases. If you're going to get later into the game, I'd say I would stick with mutas for the most part on this map, because there's a lot of space around the edge of the map where you can go in and harass mineral lines, and since there's no Zelnaga Tower on the outside of the map, not only can you control this outside expansion and prevent people from taking it, but also you can basically get into their mineral line before they have any reaction time, and that usually means you're going to be doing severe economic damage as the game drags on. The other good thing is, if your mutas are somewhere on the center of the map, you can almost always escape as soon as you hit this ridge here, because most of the map, except for this narrow place here and this narrow place here, has a ridge around it, so that makes it great for mutas to basically navigate up and across those ridges and harass mineral lines, armies, whatever. The rush distances is probably the shortest of all the maps, except for perhaps Extinction, but the narrow ramp does make it a little bit easier for players to defend. And the other nice thing is if you're Zerg on this map, your Overlord is going to be able to get over and get full scouting on the enemy base, even if it's a Terran player. So that is one nice thing about being Zerg on this map. Terran, on the other hand, I'd say it's probably the most favorable for Terran of any race on this map, because you can easily block off your ramp because it's narrow enough without having to get a delayed gas. Also, Terrans have the benefit of, if you go Hellions on this map, you can easily defend your allies against Lings and other early game units. Hellions also make great for drops later in the game, because there's a lot of places where you can do drops and do damage, especially on the edge bases. Not so much in the middle, but definitely on the edge. Terrans also have the favorable advantage of being really the only race that can take these edge expansions here, because with a planetary and a couple turrets you can easily defend yourself against mutas or anything else that might be thrown your way. In general, when I do play this map, I tend to go either Hellions or Hellion Marauder, or occasionally I'll go for lots of bio early on in the game, but you really need something mobile because of all the separated bases. And also, this ramp is pretty far from your furthest ally, which is all the way over here. In fact, you know, there's probably half the distance from the closest enemy base to this base. But oftentimes on this map, you're going to find that it comes down to counterattacking and split attacks that are played most on this map, where basically 2 or 3 players will be on one side and then 1 or 2 players will be on the other side. Terran players also can take advantage of tanks and planetaries later in the game. For instance, this gold expansion here, once you take it with a planetary and some tanks, it makes it almost impossible to push this side without broodlords or basically something else to basically break in. And it really just takes superior numbers in most cases to be able to push one side if it has a planetary set up here. So that's one thing you have to watch out for. If you see another Terran on the opposite team trying to take this expansion, you should be quick to try and attack, or else just spend most of your time attacking on the other side. Tanks also have the benefit of the short rush distance, which means they don't have a whole lot of time where they're in open ground, so it's very easy to get from your side of the map over to the enemy's side of the map and start sieging up along their production buildings along the edge, and also preventing reinforcements from getting out of their base. And that essentially means that, you know, people on the edge of the map are going to get shut down by tanks pretty badly. For the same reason, Colossus are also quite good on this map because of the short rush distance, and also all these kind of narrow, choked off areas, especially leading into the bases. There's not really a whole lot of space, and all the expansions also are, you know, no wider than maybe 2 bunkers. So 2 force fields could easily block this off, so Defender's Advantage is great on this map for Protoss. But I do often go Blink on this map just because with this area along here, if you simply have an ally's Overlord at the beginning of the game, you can easily blink in and contain this player the entire game long. Say if you're on this side of the map right here. Because of the short rush distance though, as Protoss, you're going to find yourself getting a forge or a gate forge opening if there's a Zerg that's nearby, because the 10 pool is going to get there before you're ever able to block off, or before you get your first zealot out even. As far as expansions go later in the game, everyone's got one expand that's pretty safe to take because of the kind of narrowness that leads back to them, but besides that, I'd say it's really going to come down to these gold bases as the game drags on. But this map doesn't favor any race particularly, but I would say Terran and Zerg are going to have the easiest time on the map. Zerg because there's split bases, and Terran because of the island expansions, and also the short rush distances makes it great for tanks and these narrow choked off areas. Alright guys, well thanks for sticking with me for all this analysis on the map pool of 4v4. I'd say I'm going to be uploading another edition where I'm going to go through the 3v3 map pool as well as the 2v2 map pool. Alright, well thanks for watching guys, appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.